start this meeting and welcome everybody to the City of Ann Arbor's Commission on Disability Issues meeting on Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. To all viewers, this meeting will be broadcast live on CTN Cable Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watch CTN. To speak at public comment, you can call toll-free 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 919-8673-1455. With that, I would like to call this meeting to order. I would like to start with roll call. So Kennedy, if you don't mind starting off with roll call. If Kennedy does call your name, commissioners, please unmute, state your name, your position, and where you're coming from today. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to do roll. Chair Damon.
Hi, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Zach Damon, Chairman, coming to you from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Washtenaw County.
Thank you. Vice Chair Keeler.
Yep, this is Vice Chair Keeler coming to you from Ann Arbor. My comfortable couch in my home.
Commissioner Mozak. Commissioner Solomon.
Matthew Solomon, Ann Arbor, Michigan, limited internet connectivity, so my apologies in advance.
Commissioner Mozak, I see that you are here. Can you count yourself as present, please? I think you might be on mute.
Hi, yes, I'm present.
Oh, no, I meant Commissioner Mozak.
Oh, sorry.
Are we introducing ourselves? I'm sorry, I just got off a landline call. Hi, this is Kathleen Mozak, Commissioner, and I'm calling in from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Mozak and Commissioner Hawkins. Commissioner Poster. Commissioner Gossage.
Good afternoon, everybody. Alex Gossage, Commissioner from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Ratcliffe.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Ratcliffe, calling in from normally Ann Arbor, but St. Joe's Hospital today.
Yeah.
Commissioner Packard.
This is Commissioner Packard, normally in Ann Arbor, coming to you from the Northern California area. So I've traveled the farthest to be at the meeting today.
Commissioner Chambers.
Hello, Elena Chambers, Commissioner, calling in from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner, I might pronounce your last name incorrect. Buis, B-U-I-S?
Buis. This is Lori Buis in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. And Councilmember Gadsy Edwin.
Hi, Councilmember Gadsy Edwin from Ann Arbor.
Okay. Roll call is complete.
Thank you. Roll call is complete. Thank you so much, Kennedy. Next, I would like to open it up to any public comment. Do we have any public comments for this meeting? Please note that you do have 3 minutes per public comment. Any public comment this afternoon, Kennedy?
At this time, we have no callers online for public comment.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, we have the approval of today's agenda. All of you should have gotten an electronic copy of the agenda for the meeting today. For all the commissioners on the line, I would just like to open it up for any amendments or edits to the agenda. And if there are none, is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
If there are
I
no
would move to
additions,
approve. Oh, go ahead.
thank you, Lee. I was just going to say I went over it and I see no reason for any adjustments. If we can move to approve the minutes of today's meeting, I make a motion.
All right, thank you, Rob. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Barry seconds. All in favor of approving today's commission meeting agenda? please unmute and say aye.
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 All right, thank you all. The agenda for today is approved. Next on our agenda, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from our January 17th meeting. Anybody have any questions or comment on there, or is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from January.
Thank you, Commissioner Ratcliffe. Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, thank you. All in favor of approving the Commission on Disability Issues minutes from January 17, 2024, please unmute and say aye.
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 All right, thank you. The meeting minutes are approved from January. Next, I am excited to have a new commission candidate introduction before we get into our official presentations for the day. Kennedy, do we have candidate Achenbacher on the line?
He is here and he is allowed to speak.
All right, wonderful. Welcome, Sam. The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Sam Ankenbauer. I'm a third. Oh, do I have 5 minutes? Did you say?
Yes, 5 minutes, please.
Okay. I won't go over that. I'm Sam. I'm a third-year PhD candidate at the University of Michigan School of Information. I study human-computer interaction, computer-supported cooperative work, specifically concerning infrastructure, aging, and disability accessibility. And so I have a little bit of background. I have a certificate in disability inclusion and accessible design. I have like a DEI certificate from the Rackham School of Professional Development. I'm also a graduate of the Ann Arbor Community Academy program, which I thought was really fascinating and valuable in terms of my infrastructure study. So that's kind of a background on me. I was hoping to join the commission, and I have a couple of. I was just trying to think of how I could maybe be of some service or value to the community. And so I have a couple of ideas of things that I was thinking maybe I could do. I read the minutes of the past maybe 3 or 4 months of the commission. So I don't know if I saw any of these on there, and maybe people have done this in the past. So I'm sorry if I'm intruding upon somebody else's work, but I was thinking a couple of ideas that maybe I could work on. Would be like an accessibility audit of the government websites, Ann Arbor government websites. I did like a little preliminary analysis of how accessible some websites are, like the a2gov.org, and there were just on the front page, 2 instances of missing alt text for images. There were a couple of contrast issues. There were elements that were not legible to a screen reader. Like for instance, there was one button that said like see all events, but the see all events was built into the button. So there was no text that would be legible to a screen reader. So effectively nobody that was using a screen reader could see that there was a button for all events, or hear that rather. So it was, I thought that was maybe maybe a good place to start would just be the accessibility of government sites. But I was also thinking maybe it would be valuable to compile some accessibility information for downtown businesses. This could be something I could do that would be like manually assessing or asking for compliance of how accessible business spaces are, compile that information into a spreadsheet with maybe phone numbers so individuals that have questions could ask ahead of time. I know that, for instance, like before the renovation, I used to work at the State Theater, and that was like a very inaccessible space, and we would have people that just were not familiar with the fact that we were grandfathered into this space and were working towards getting it accessible, but it wasn't as of yet. So maybe having like a guiding document for accessible spaces would be something interesting. I know that in Singapore, for instance, they have town audits where you go around town with various people and they kind of point out inaccessible spaces. And I just think that's kind of an interesting idea. But anyway, and then I was also thinking just a last kind of idea would be maybe having listening sessions or some sort of sessions requesting feedback on how older adults with disability are aging in place. Aging in place is something that most people want to do. I think 78% of people that were polled by AARP wanted to age in place. A lot of people want to age in place in Ann Arbor, but just a lot of infrastructure isn't built to support people aging in place. So I was thinking maybe it would be interesting to get some sort of listening sessions going, talking to people about what would be valuable to support your desired aging in place. Like I was talking to an older adult who uses a wheelchair recently about taking public transit in the winter. Those kinds of things that compound and make independent life difficult. Yeah, so I was thinking maybe those would be three things that I could maybe, or one of those, I could take on one of those things at first. But those would maybe be some things that might be helpful in some form or fashion. Yeah, so I hope that was less than 5 minutes, and thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. You were within time. So I do appreciate that. And I just want to notify all the full commission that, he has, been interviewed and things of that sort as well by the recruitment committee. So he's gone through that processes and his, application has been fully reviewed. I guess because we have a couple of minutes, are there one or two questions any commissioners would like to ask Sam based upon his introduction today? Please raise your hand.
Member Ghazi Edwin.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, this is Aisha Ghazi Edwin. Sam, I just want to say it was so interesting to hear some of the ideas that you have and your skill set around accessibility. So it's great meeting you. And those are some of the things that we've talked about internally with Tracy Bird and Laura Orto, who I'm sure that you'll meet soon, who are fantastic. Just about some ideas that we've been talking about recently and needed information for folks. So yeah, it sounds great. And I would love to make a connection either way. So I'll be reaching out.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, if there's anything in progress that I would any kind of space where conversations are already being had and I might be of more service there. I mean, I would love to just be any kind of small cog in a larger system of support and aid. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yep, awesome. I'll reach out. Thank you.
All right. One more minute on this subject matter. Is there any? Go ahead.
Member Solomon.
Hi, Sam. Nice to meet you. I think my question was just about the 3-year term of a commissioner and your degree program potentially being less than that. So just wanted to get a sense of where you're at.
Yeah, I think I'm in my just beginning my 3rd year of the program, and I've kind of always lived in Ann Arbor for probably, oh no, 11 to 12 years now. So I imagine myself being in Ann Arbor beyond the program. And also, yeah, I think I'll be in the program for another 3 years, I do believe. So yeah, because it's a PhD program. Yeah.
Commissioner Packard.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate what you're doing with your education and your background and joining us today. And you are welcome to reach out. My information is accessible. And what inspired you to go into your field that you're working?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've just always been interested in aging and accessibility. I think because I have like a fondness and close relationship with my grandparents and people within their like senior community. and I feel like a lot of literature is deficit based in my given space. Like human computer interaction is often deficit based. It's often like biomedicalized, which is to say, there's like a techno solution to medical issues or something like that. And so I kind of wanted to push back on that reading and more support like agency in both older adults and in the disability accessibility space. So that was just kind of what I guess brought me to it. And also working at the State Theater and seeing people struggle up and down the stairs and just like knowing that there's so much work to be done in a lot of areas. Yeah, anyway.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam, for your introduction and for your gracious answers to the full commission's questions. Thank you. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to the special presentation portion of our agenda today. And I am extremely grateful to introduce the Office of Disability Integration and Coordination, Mr. Gilliams from FEMA. Mr. Gilliams, we are extremely delighted to have you. We appreciate you taking the time, and I'm delighted that you are here to present to us today. So I would like to, with that, turn the floor over to Mr. Sherman Gilliams of FEMA. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. I am delighted to see all of you. Happy New Year. I'm going to use the first 3 months of the year to say Happy New Year to everybody I've seen for the first time. But I'm also happy because anytime we can get local leaders and components of the governmental or stakeholder structure to pay attention to a disaster before it happens in your area, that's a good thing because resilience begins before the disaster. You don't have to prove it later, right? So we try to encourage more communities at this level to do that. So I'm happy that you're doing that. It's a great example that you're modeling for other communities. I've got some slides here to share with you. So let me see if I can bring my slides up. There it is. Perfect. And if you'll let me know when you can see that.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll just start with a little bit of a bio, not to get too much into it, except it's relevant to the work that I do. I joined the 60 million strong of the disability community back in 2002 while serving in the Marine Corps. I suffered a spinal cord injury, took a few years to rehabilitate, and now I ambulate life in a wheelchair, proud to be a part of this community and all that comes with the advocacy and the voice that comes with having this identity. That's important to my role because I am now the disability coordinator for FEMA, and that role was established after Hurricane Katrina, when, as you probably know, a lot of people died, not because of Mother Nature or the disaster, but because of the human-made aspects of a disaster that found a lot of people who are older or with disabilities abandoned in many ways. This was back in 2005. I happened to be 3 years post-injury when that happened. I was in San Diego when the wildfires burned through Rancho Penasquitos, and I made the decision not to evacuate because of what I saw a month earlier in Louisiana. So I bring that experience to a job that was established a year later. I'm the fourth disability coordinator, so I'm the fourth person to hold this role. But more importantly, I bring the experience of being a survivor, being somebody who knows what it's like, frankly, to not trust the government, to hear the messaging, to doubt what I'm hearing, and to make a decision that probably would have been fatal had the winds literally turned when I was in San Diego. And it's such the case that when I heard about the job, I was surprised that it had been around for so long because I'd never heard of a disability coordinator in FEMA. You know, despite the fact that I'd been involved in disasters in Hurricane Harvey, Maria, as a stakeholder, not on the government side, but I was involved in this work and I had never heard of a disability coordinator. So my first priority was to make sure that people know what the disability coordinator is, what the Office of Disability Integration and Coordination does, which is while we respond to disasters, I hope that we're doing more work on the steady state side before a disaster and helping communities be more resilient. So there is a law that Congress passed that established the role of disability coordinator. And from there, the mission has evolved quite a bit. And this is just a, let me roll up my little profile window here so I can see the whole thing. This map gives you some idea of how the mission has evolved. And while this may not be relevant to every state specifically, it does give you a sense of how it has evolved given the challenges that we've seen over the years since 2005. The Southwest is notorious for having hurricanes and tornadoes wreak havoc in the area year after year after year. And then you've had those sort of one-off disasters. The East Palestine train crash was an example last year that became one that we got tied up in Pennsylvania and Ohio. I'm not sure if the Michigan area has had many. I probably should have looked that up, but I know that Chicago area and that part of the country has had a few floods, and tornadoes are possible just about anywhere. But this is how it's evolved over the years. It went from being this sort of model where we have a whole lot of people go to a disaster to one where we try to embed the competency, the disability integration competency in offices that aren't necessarily established for disability focus, but they need that as a part of their program. And so in 2024, I'll end the presentation with some of the things we're doing. But as you can see, it went from a more of an advocacy model to one where we look at compliance more than anything else. And I'll roll down the screen here just in case anybody raises their hand so I can see you. A lot of what got me here, I got here on August 14th, 2022. And I spent a lot of time trying to understand where we've been as an office, as an agency, where the lessons to be learned were that I needed to prioritize as the new director of the office. And so I relied a lot on the literature to figure out where the problems were coming up over and over again. I also went to a few disasters. These were the big six from last year and the early part of this year, actually the year before, and then last year. We haven't had any disasters this year, knock on wood. But we started the year with a major tornado in Alabama, and then we ended the year with a major tornado in Tennessee. And what I do is I go into a disaster area. And the questions I ask have to do with how are we setting up emergency shelters for people with disabilities and not just mobility, right? Are we looking at people who are deaf? Are we looking at people who are blind or have low vision? Are we looking at parents who have children with autism? Are we looking at adult kids taking care of parents with dementia? We're looking at all aspects of disability because a lot of times when you say accessibility, you think about a wheelchair and that's it, right? We're not thinking about environmental accessibility, which really should have nothing to do with disability. It's making it accessible for everybody, but unfortunately, that's not often the case. So I went into what were largely tornadoes and hurricanes, and again, there was a train derailment with an eye toward looking at the entire ecosystem and ways that people with disabilities were going to be disadvantaged, not because of a disaster, but because they have a disability or what we consider an access and functional need, which can mirror a disability, such as a woman who's pregnant and in a crisis situation, somebody who is older, not disabled, but then, their age becomes a barrier, people of larger or smaller stature. So we're looking to make this as inclusive as possible so that people don't consider this disability design or disability process or plans. This is really about making sure everybody can survive a disaster regardless of their how they show up. And many of the lessons learned came back to these 14 areas. I heard the previous speaker talk about being a PhD student. I'm a doctoral student. I defend my dissertation next week. A lot of what we do is we look at what themes resonate. Where are the themes that keep coming up in the data? And as I looked through the literature and went to the different disaster areas, these 14 areas kept coming up as the areas where things begin to break down for people with disabilities. I'm not going to go through all 14 because some are obvious, but the first one is inclusion and planning. It was so hard to go to Tennessee and not to put a state on blast, but I went into Tennessee with the question being, where's your where's your disaster plan? And who did you talk to about what you're going to do? You're going to have tornadoes. It's not, out of the it's not beyond the realm of possibility. But what was your plan for people for for example, when the power goes out? We know we've got about 1,500 people on dialysis and, all these people that depend on power. What's your communication plan? So all those things become obvious gaps in preparedness. So we want to make sure that in places like Michigan, where you're focused on this issue, the first question you ask your state representatives, how are you including people with disabilities in disaster planning? And then you can go through alerts and warnings. Are your sites 508 compliant? If you're deaf or you use a screen reader, am I going to get the information? One thing I foot stomp on a lot, if your governor is on television addressing the public without someone doing ASL, the first inequity has already occurred. The first domino has fallen, right? So we're leaving out a lot of people. And then we could go through all the others, the power dependency, access to drinking water, when they set up distribution sites, people who can't physically get there, is there anybody bringing water to those people, and things like that. And then finally, what are the chances that the people who have disabilities can return to their pre-disaster independence and autonomy, and even if they have to move to a different home, are we making ways for them to get back to that point? So, and housing is oftentimes a big barrier to that. So these are the 14 areas that we focus on going into a disaster, but we try to proactively have these be the areas that states and counties focus on before a disaster, so we don't see them happen if we can avoid it. And I'm just giving you a case study of what I actually do, right? This is an example that pretty innocuous to most people. This is a hand washing station. If you're a person with a disability who uses a wheelchair, maybe you're somebody who is, uses a catheter, or you have to administer, some type of injections of some type, right? Having clean hands is really important. It's not just a convenience. It's a matter of safety. It's a matter of being able to get through being in an emergency shelter without incurring another illness. And so when I looked at this hand washing station, I pointed out to those who logistically bring these things in that if there is an alternative, we ought to think about that. We want everybody to be able to access clean water. And this is a very small thing to some people, but for me, it was a big deal because it was during COVID, right? And so we had a lot of, we were told, wash your hands or you could die. And in this case, we didn't have a hand washing station where everybody could access it. So I actually located the type of hand washing station that they should think about getting, and made that clear to logistics that this is one way we can eliminate one barrier to safely getting through the disaster experience. And this is a small one. I mean, they get much bigger, but this is an easily, you can easily see how it's important to have the type of eyes that we bring to these experiences that most people will miss. All right, and there's the hand crank that turns on the water, so you don't need to press it with your foot. Here's an obvious one. What's wrong with this picture? I really thought I was being punked, right? There was a show on MTV called Punk, and I thought there's no way this is real, right? And I won't tell you where this was, but when I saw this, I thought this really sends the wrong signal to people. I'm somebody who they're probably going to try to accommodate, but at this shelter, there were 700 people, and I saw with my own eyes about 20 in wheelchairs. And I just thought this can't happen, right? And so in this case, though, the problem wasn't that there was just one bathroom. There was actually an accessible bathroom, but the sign led me to believe that this is where I was being encouraged to look. And if you looked at how steep the stairs are with no handrails, again, access and functional need. Even for a pregnant, mom or an older person, this could be very dangerous. And so we asked the shelter manager to look at the environment a little differently, look for signs so you guide people into the right direction. But having that universal symbol of access on there is why this was problematic, because it led me to believe this was the only option. So this was another example of the type of work that I do in these areas, right? And that's what the sign looked like. So they did fix that, and fortunately, there was a bathroom there where people could access it, and so we weren't stuck with that. This is really important because this tells me if you have a disaster in Ann Arbor, I look at several data sets to determine what the disability profile is of the people who are likely in that disaster by county. We start with the U.S. Census. Of course, it's dated data, right? It's every 10 years, so we don't go by one data set, but we do get sort of an approximation of how many people are in that area. We also look at the SVI, the Social Vulnerability Index, which gives us an idea of whether there's a socioeconomic dimension to the disaster population. Is it a rural area? Are they older? Do they skew toward, people of color in a rural area, socioeconomic? All those things factor in. But empowered data is also important, and I'll show you an example in the next slide. Empowered data, which is maintained by HHS, tells us how many people during a power outage are going to be impacted and probably have their lives in danger in the event. And then lastly, the IA disability applications. These are individual assistance applications. These are people who apply for resources and identify as disabled. So we get all that information and sort of triangulate a picture of what the disability characteristics are in a given county that's been impacted. And then we rely on confirmatory data. This is where you all may come in. We talk to anybody on the ground. We look in media. We talk to stakeholders, anybody who can help us confirm what we think we're seeing. This became important in Tennessee because the data told us that the disability population was younger, and we couldn't figure out why they were so young. Well, it's because it was a military veteran community, and a lot of military veterans are younger and disabled. And so knowing that, we could adjust our strategy for how we communicated around that characteristic of the data. So we look at that confirmatory data to give more dimension to what we think we know about a given area. And then here's an example of how we actually put that to work for us. We knew that there were power outages. We knew that there were about almost 1,500 people who were electricity dependent. And so when we sent out our disaster survivor assistance teams to canvass the neighborhoods, we wanted them to be intentional about identifying people who are likely power dependent, dialysis, oxygen dependent, all the other ways that somebody could be. I use a power assist wheelchair, so my chair is power dependent. If it dies, my chair becomes 50 pounds heavier. All right. So that's an example of where we try to be a little bit more intentional and go beyond the data so that we could actually get people connected to recovery a lot faster. And this just gives you an idea of the sort of framework that I try to educate on, that takes the focus off of a diagnosis or how people show up as individuals. And we put the focus on the environment. Are we looking at communication for everybody? Are we looking at how everybody maintains health? If hospitals were damaged, there are people who are more reliant on that hospital than others, as was the case in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. That entire hospital was wiped out. So we had to look at that as a risk factor for people, even if their homes weren't damaged. If the hospital's wiped out and you're in a rural area, that's a problem. Independence. We want people to be as independent as they need to be so that they can make decisions for themselves, and making sure that we have accessible shelters is one way to do that. Making sure that we have accessible transportation, giving people the ability to advocate for themselves is a big part of that. And the support and safety, of course, is that's a constant concern in these crisis areas. And that's the, and I'll send you this in PDF, but that's the website where you can go to learn more about ways that the disaster plan needs to contemplate how you're going to take care of these communities or tend to the needs of these communities. So it isn't diagnosis specific. It's really about how we're making the environment functional for everybody. One quick case study, bunch of porta johns, 2 were accessible. Hand washing station, the one I showed you earlier, looks pretty straightforward. In this case, the porta johns were about 40 feet away from the shelter. One, it was a problem because you're asking people with wheelchairs or mobility issues to navigate that far to get to the restroom. There's a reason why they put it out that far. It had to do with the plumbing or things like that. But that was a problem. Now, the other problem with this, it was also 94 degrees outside at a record high. And I don't know if you've ever been to a porta john in the middle of the heat, but it could be a death trap, depending on the type of condition you have. If you're like me, where you can't sweat because that's the nature of a spinal cord injury, you have to artificially, cool your skin down. This could be a real problem with it being so far away and under the hot sun for somebody with a disability. So this was another example of where I had to point out where this could be problematic. Right, and that's the hand washing station. These are out of order. That's the hand washing station I referred to earlier. And then this is a pretty important part. We're putting a big focus on,
Excuse me, sir, your almost at time here, so I'll let you finish this
I'm
portion.
gonna roll through these then. This is probably the most important. Matter of fact, let me get through this and then I'll be done.
Roger that. Thank
We
you.
want to make sure that messaging is a critical component that we plan for in any disaster. So if you have an opportunity to meet with the emergency management agency in your state, have them outline for you, how are we going to message to people? Because a lot of what goes into messaging will determine the decisions that people make. I talked earlier about the wildfires in San Diego. A big part of our problem is the response that people have with disabilities when they're in a disaster being warned to leave. Whether they do that, a lot of times depends on the quality of the messaging. Here's some training that anybody can take. It's on our FEMA platform. You can sign up, register, take the training. It's for anybody who wants to be familiar with that. This is ultimately the metric that counts the most. How can we shorten the time it takes for people with disabilities to recover? And I am done. I was racing against the clock in my head, so I apologize for going over, but I was trying to get it all in there.
Mr. Gilliams, if I may call you Sherman, no
Sure,
worries.
please.
I just have to keep us
I
moving.
understand. Yep.
Yeah, no worries. But thank you so much. And by the way, I just also want to point out thank you to Commissioner Ratcliffe as well for being the liaison and getting you in this meeting. Because we are short on time, I see we do have some questions, but I want to limit it to 2 questions and then move on.
I'll be quick.
Commissioner Mozak?
Mine is a quick one. Will your entire slide deck come to us so that we can get all the excellent information that you shared today?
I will send it. Yep.
Commissioner
You
Chambers?
may already have it. In fact, you may have it. I think you do already, but I'll make sure.
We do not, but if that could be sent over, I'm happy to
Okay.
share that with the commission.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
I'll
Commissioner
also be quick. Yeah, I'll also be quick. Thank you so much for this presentation, first of all. I was wondering what the processes look like. You mentioned housing, both temporary and permanent, what the processes look like for connecting people to more permanent disability accessible housing in the event that their home was damaged, particularly for lower income folks who may experience financial barriers to accessing a more permanent location.
FEMA doesn't do that. That's really the state's responsibility. We're invited in to make the area safe, but the biggest problem for this community is housing. It lasts long after the disaster. So that's a discussion I would love to have with you, maybe in its own session, to figure out how Michigan and Ann Arbor has prepared for that question in case anything ever happens.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gilliams. And please, I hope that we can, continue to be in contact with you and have you, abreast of us, and then you keeping us abreast of what's going on in natural disaster areas around our country. And if there is anything that we can assist with from the city of Ann Arbor, I encourage you to reach out to us.
Let me know. I'll be here anytime you need me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service as well.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I would like to move on to our next presentation. We have the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled with Katie Monkevich. Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today, everybody. As usual, I'm just going to give some updates about what's going on at the library. We have some upcoming events that I'm going to highlight. The first one is You've Got a Book in You, How to Go from Idea to Author. That's on Sunday, February 25th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. at the Downtown Library. We're inviting you to join writer and publishing expert Brandy Larson to understand the ins and outs of book publishing, from how books go from ideas to manuscripts to bestsellers, and how your work can fit into the publishing process. Talk will focus on adult books from the biggest publishing companies and some aspects of self-publishing. If your friends and family have said, "That's a book," this entertaining and inspiring talk is for you. We also have an author event coming up. This is, the author is Malia Lazu. She'll be discussing her book, From Intention to Impact, A Practical Guide to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is on Thursday, February 29th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Downtown Library. From Intention to Impact shows what organizations, leaders, and people at all levels must do to create more inclusive environments that honor and value diversity. Lazu shares a 7-stage guide through this process, as well as a 3L model of listening, learning, and loving that readers can use from the initial excitement of doing something to the frustration when the inevitable pushback comes, and finally to the determination to do the hard work despite the challenges on corporate and political fronts. Most compelling, From Intention to Impact shows that while commitment from the top is paramount, for DEI to be most effective, it needs to be decentralized among managers, within teams, and across the organization. For this event, Lazu will be in conversation with Ryan Friedrichs, Chief Development Officer for the City of Detroit and Advisory Board Member for the University of Michigan's Youth Policy Lab. And the library intends to provide a live stream of this event pending the presenter's permission. You can check aadl.org prior to the event for additional updates on that. Couple of words about materials. As usual, Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Print Disabled patrons can order digital cartridges by calling us at 734-327-4224. Or you can always email us at wlbpd@aadl.org. And we encourage folks who are eligible for the service to sign up for the Braille and audio reading service to download their own books. You can visit nlsbard.loc.gov or call us and we can assist with your application. And here are a couple of books that you can find recently on Bard. Dinner with the President, Food, Politics, and a History of Breaking Bread at the White House by Alex Prudhomme. Some of the most significant moments in American history have occurred over meals, as U.S. presidents broke bread with friends and foe. Thomas Jefferson's nation-building receptions in the new Capitol, Washington, D.C., Ulysses S. Grant's state dinner for the King of Hawaii, Teddy Roosevelt's groundbreaking supper with Booker T. Washington, Jimmy Carter's cakes and pies that fueled a détente between Israel and Egypt at Camp David. Here, Alex Prudhomme invites listeners into the White House kitchen to reveal the sometimes curious tastes of 26 of America's most influential presidents, how their meals were prepared and by whom, and the ways their choices affected food policy around the world. What our leaders say about food touches on everything from our nation's shifting diet and local politics to global trade, science, religion, war, class, gender, race, and so much more. Prudhomme also details overlooked figures like George Washington's enslaved chef, Hercules Posey, whose meals burnished the president's reputation before the cook narrowly escaped to freedom, and pioneering first ladies such as Dolly Madison and Jackie Kennedy, who used food and entertaining to build political and social relationships. As he weaves these stories together, Prudhomme shows that food is not just fuel when it is served to the most powerful people in the world. It is a tool of communication, a lever of power and persuasion, a form of entertainment, and a symbol of the nation. And we also have The Fun Habit, How the Pursuit of Joy and Wonder Can Change Your Life by Michael Rucker. Doesn't it seem that the more we seek happiness, the more elusive it becomes? There is an easy fix. Fun is an action you can take here and now, practically anywhere, anytime. Through research and science, we know fun is enormously beneficial to our physical and psychological well-being, yet fun's absence from our modern lives is striking. Whether you're a frustrated high achiever trying to find a better work-life balance or someone who is seeking relief from life's overwhelming challenges, it is time you gain access to the best medicine available. And that is all I have for you folks today. Does anybody have any comments or questions for me? Zach?
Of course. First of all, oh my goodness, dinner with the president. Amazing. Amazing
Sounds good, huh?
Yeah, my goodness. My goodness. I can't wait to check that out. So thank you so much for sending that. Absolutely. Just thank you so much. I just wanted to mention how interesting that was. Does anyone else have any comments or questions for Katie?
Okay, well, so good to see you all. Thanks for having me, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie, for all of your work. And as the warmer months come, we definitely look forward to visions coming up. As the warmer months come about. So.
June 5th, more information to come, but thank you for bringing it up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. All right. Moving on to our next presentation, we have the Disability Network of Washtenaw, Monroe, and Livingston with Andrea. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Just a quick, brief update today. I wanted to quickly highlight something I don't think that we've talked about recently here at these meetings, and that is the art gallery that is on site in the Ann Arbor location. Currently has an exhibit going on that started on February 12th and runs through March 29th. With the closing reception from 6 to 7:30. The gallery is available for folks to come see the artwork Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30. There's also some virtual options for viewing that same gallery and art exhibition. And of course, that stems from art classes that are provided by our art teacher, Claire Moore, at our Ann Arbor location on multiple times a week. So if folks are interested in those, I would encourage them to give our office a call, check out our website. Our event calendar has all of that updated information that, as I think I've indicated before, it changes and is updated more frequently than I can speak to on a monthly occasion. But I just wanted to bring that to folks' attention and let folks know that that is something that we have in our buildings and on site, and encourage folks to go check out that exciting art exhibit. And stay tuned in the coming months for more updates on classes, events, and exhibits and such going on at Disability Network, as well as, of course, our ADA celebration when the months and the weather get more consistently better than the beautiful wet random day we're having today. So that's all I have for folks today, unless anybody has any questions. Thank you for your time.
Andrea, thank you. And yes, please, thank you so much for mentioning it. When that ADA celebration comes about, absolutely, please let us know. If you don't mind, I'd also like to plug the amazing Nothing About Us Without Us Film Festival that Disability Network is launching, you guys. That's going to be coming up, I think, when around March or April or something?
I think in April. So I'll have more information for that for you folks and everyone in March. But yeah, it's coming in April. So yeah, exciting things are happening.
Yeah, and if anybody knows, filmmakers or producers or anything of that sort, are you guys still accepting submissions?
I believe submissions are officially closed, but again, if you do know someone, don't hesitate to give our office a call, and they can connect you to the folks who are facilitating that event to find that out for sure. So there might be some space available that I just am not aware of. So
outstanding. Thank you so much. And I encourage all of us at this meeting to hopefully attend the digital Nothing About Us Without Us Film Festival. Will be accessible, excuse me, digitally. So I hope we can all attend. I have to say, from experience, I attended it last year and viewed some of the programming, and I have to tell you, the dialogue that is centered around the programming and all of that is very, very impactful. The dialogue is important, and I just encourage all of us to join that as well. Thank you so much to the Disability Network of Washtenaw, Monroe, and Livingston for all you're doing.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. Next, I'd like to move on to our Partners and Access Committee report with Mr. Larry Keeler. Larry, the floor is yours, sir. I think you're still on mute, Larry. I know you're probably trying to find it. No worries. No worries. Just let us know, Larry, when you've unmuted, and we will make sure you can get to that. Here we are.
Hello, I'm unmuted.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Take it
For
away
some
with
reason
access.
Yeah, for some reason it takes me a minute. I have to keep doing it and doing it with this phone. And this is a new one, but still. All right. Partners in Access. We did meet. Commissioner Mozak joined us. And we discussed the update. We discussed the Washtenaw Community College thing we discussed last time with the student who was having some accessibility issues, but there was no real updates there. And we also discussed the parking, the handicap the parking problems that were being had at City Hall, and there may be a couple more coming up, but there was no other updates on that. And then the Michigan Theater, we talked about the Michigan Theater and the proposal that is going around about trying to get the new glasses set up there for any kind of thing. And I volunteered to call the theaters, and I got a number for State Theater, but I didn't get through to it. And I got, that seemed to be not available. And the Michigan Theater one, I didn't get through to either. So I'm thinking about, at least for the Michigan Theater, going down and grabbing some popcorn and seeing if I can talk to somebody in the next few days. And then I'll skip across the street to the State Theater and try to see if I can see them in person and just see what they have for accessibility options currently now. For example, the voice, and I think Michigan Theater has it, the voice, the audio description. I found that I seem to have used that at the Michigan Theater, but I'm not really, I can't remember. I know I've used it other places, and I found it pretty adequate for filling in the holes of what I didn't know. So I want to see what the State and Michigan Theater have before we push. So I basically, we set that as bringing it up to the commission and doing more research before we go too forward on it. And, if there's any discussion, which I'm sure there probably will be, because we have Mr. Packard who missed the meeting here, and I think that was his idea. And so if there's any discussion, we can let that happen if you'd like.
Sure. This
and
is
other than that, it's the end of my end of my report.
Oh, thank you, Larry, and thank you to the Partners in Access Committee for all the work that you're doing with the individual at Washtenaw Community College, the handicap parking spaces, and then this initiative that was brought forth by Commissioner Packard. Commissioner Packard, I know you have some additional comments on that initiative for the Michigan and State Theaters. So would you like to share that?
Yes, thank you very much. And Larry, I will be in town in the near future. Glad to join you and do anything I can. This is more of a general kind of a void or black hole, not just for any one theater or public area. But what I've noticed is that a lot of places, video or visual assistive devices are not there in general, where it could fill in for people who might want some just additional assistance in seeing things. So I think the idea of us moving forward in some way, whatever kind of device it is, would be really awesome. I looked up some stats. This is the CDC. 1 million people in America are blind, legally blind, and 93% of them have some usable vision. But going out into public places, theaters, art museums, I really haven't found devices that you can put on your head. Real quick, I just thought I'd take an opportunity to show one thing that I have used that you were talking about. It's called Patriot Lens. I don't know if you can see looking forward. I have a TV set in front of me. And in my vision, I can't see anything but a fuzzy, hazy screen. Just one sec here. But when I put this device on, I can look forward and I can see, certain things that help me to visualize what I'm actually looking at on the screen in front of me. And I can actually even, read subtitles sometimes. And it's just helpful. So if we could maybe put some of our heads together, and we had a doctoral candidate on earlier who's worked with the theater. If we can find a way to fill in that. I've gone into movie theaters and tried to use visual aid devices. Using your cell phone doesn't really work because people don't want you to be holding a cell phone up in a theater. So I just think that it would be great for us to put our heads together, look at what's out there, and see if something like this can help the many people that could use some extra assistance in viewing theater experiences. I think we have an opportunity to be pioneers, break ground in this area. And if you know of a place that's using devices, visual aids, where it's succeeding, that's a great subject that I think we could really make a change on if we put our heads together as a team. A lot of smart people in here that I think we can figure some things out.
I do have something to say. Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
No, finish up. Talk to you.
Just I mean, I think that there is a definite need, and this isn't just me. This is talking with many in the community of those who are blind like myself. You go into I'm not just any in general theater across the country. A lot of times you're giving a closed caption device, which being blind, I can't read. Many times in various theaters, I've been given Walkman so I can hear it better. But being blind, that I hear fine.
Yeah.
So, but I have yet to be told in a place, and it would be really great for the 93% of those who are blind with usable vision, here's something that'll help you see it better. That would be awesome. So this is a chance where we can actually be breaking ground and adding this to that toolkit, whether it be through donation, pilot program, grant, whatever it takes to see how it works. And is it something that can help people who could use that little extra assistance? It's the equivalent of like a hearing aid for someone who may be deaf that needs a little extra hearing. So I'd be glad to work with you and brainstorm and figure some things out. I really appreciate that it's even being discussed among all of the folks here. I have a degree in broadcast cinematic arts. I was a TV news photographer, reporter for almost 20 years. So it's a subject that I'm very passionate about. And I know a lot of the folks here in this great team, they feel the exact same way and finding other ways to help each other. Thanks, Larry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Packard. Yes, Larry, go ahead.
Well, I had a couple things. One is I'm interested in your input, Commissioner Packard, because you do have some usable sight left. I have none. Anybody asks me if I have a problem seeing, I'm like, no, I don't have a problem seeing. I just don't do it anymore. So I'm very interested in that, and I'll call you sometime this week, or by the weekend, and we can set up for when you're. And if any of the other commissioners want to come with us, we could go and visit those two theaters and do some research when you're in town. We can set up a time to do that. We can do that, and I'd love to do that with you because, again, I have no sight. You have some, and I'm kind of wondering. I'm kind of am interested where you're coming from, and I do have some other people that are partially sighted that may or may not know some of this technology is available if they have anything. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
Oh, great. Yeah, I've had folks who have been blind and unable to go to movie theaters, and they've tried this on, and it's really neat. to see the reaction. I went into a theater here in California. They had nothing for me. Nothing was working, and I brought my own device here that magnifies the screen and lets you zoom in, and I could actually read some of the subtitles with this device. So
Nice.
and a lot of people don't know this is out there. This is kind of cutting edge, and I think that technologies are going to really help. As we know, things have changed a lot in the last 10, 20 years, and they're gonna move forward. So thank you very much, Larry, and everyone here.
I have to make a date to go get popcorn then.
Yeah,
That's
any
popcorn
excuse
at the
to go
movie
see
theater.
movies.
That's right.
Gentlemen,
That's
thank
right.
you so much. Larry, I just wanted to make clear too, I think that's outstanding. But please keep the Partners in Access Committee, if you can, involved in the process, because I'd like us all to have it be a unified effort. So there isn't
Oh, yeah,
like,
anybody's welcome to come with us. I'm just going to set it up. I
okay,
just wanted to set it up when he's back in town, and then of course anybody else can come. We'll set it up for anybody else too.
okay. Great, gentlemen. Well, please keep me informed on that. Really appreciate it. Anything else for Partners in Access? All right. Moving on to community engagement with Rachel Hawkins. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Zach. I'm here. I do not have a new update. I reached out to Melissa Bondi. They were supposed to be producing a new session last month. So I just asked for an update on kind of where things are in terms of the release schedule for the sessions. And then I'll send that to Kennedy when I have an update. So
Outstanding.
thank you very much.
No, thank you, Rachel. And I just want you to know I really appreciate all of your efforts that you do to keep us informed on Ann Arbor Inclusive, our disability daytime television show, making sure that we are showcasing not only the successes of those with disabilities, but also the disability resources available to those in our community and around the state. So thank you. Really appreciate it. And thank you to CTN for all the great work they do on that show, as well as Tom Holtland and Linda Evans. Thank you. Next, I'd like to move on to recruiting activity. Larry, you're back at it. Here you are.
I'm back at it. Well, we have done nothing in the, we have done something, but we have, what we have done is we've presented you another candidate for review for the commission. We interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and you have heard from him at the beginning, and we do intend to send him forward or whatever that vote would be soon. But other than that, I have not seen any more candidates come through. And but we are still looking, so anybody who wants to apply can still do that.
Awesome. Thank you. Absolutely. Next, Larry, don't go anywhere because it's the Transportation Commission update.
That meeting was the 17th of January after ours at 7 o'clock. And we had no public comment, so and we had elections. And Chris and Megan got to be chairman and vice chairman. I forget their last names right now, and I just put them down, and we can find them out. And the annual report passed. The policy for 2025 passed. Oh, it wasn't Chris; it was Brett. That I made a note here. Brett is the chair now. Also, we also approved state report, and where there was a lot of resurfacing projects and sidewalk gaps being taken care of, State and Hill amongst them, Medical Center Drive, Miller and 7th. And there was some more work on Greenbelt and South Main Stadium and North University. And Nixon and Pauline, which is by me, Pittsfield. And then we had addressed spin in our work plan for some of the things that are the scooter things and how they're going to work into the work plan. And then we talked about US 23 again. They're planning on doing a lot of major revisions on US 23 as it goes through town out by Arborland. And then we had we're still working for carbon reduction with they want to put LED lights in, and instead of some of the normal traffic lights, some LED lights. And that was it for that meeting. And anything I missed is probably in the packet.
All right. Thank you, Larry, for all that you do for our commission as well as on the Transportation Commission. We are going to bypass the U of M Council for Disability Concerns meeting update this month, as we were not able, unfortunately, to have anyone present unless there are any other commissioners that I would like to speak on that at this time. Okay. Next, we have the Organizational Equity Report with Tracy Bird. Tracy, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I want to touch on actually something that was brought up from a Partners in Access meeting regarding the accessible parking at City Hall. I have followed up on that, and I've connected with every individual and within the city who's involved and responsible for meeting the standards. And honestly, I've exhausted all the tools and resources available to me in my office. So now I need to pursue other means, which is where what I'm going to ask of you all. I will tell you, I spoke with facilities and engineers and they shared their approach to the visual, why it was done the way it was done. And they feel that we are in compliance with that now. So what my ask is of you is I'm going to ask Council Member Ghazi Edwin to submit an RFI to the city, sharing that the current construct of the brick pavers and signs for accessible parking are not solving the issue of the space being left open between the aisle or between vehicles, so the accessible aisleway. I suggest that maybe it's inquired as to how to go about having the pavers clearly painted with lines for each spot, as well as the access aisle. You might also want to request that those in charge of maybe monitoring or policing the parking lot increase their attention to this issue, especially on days and nights when we have public meetings like council meetings or events at City Hall. So I know that's not a resolution, but it's more of an ask from the commission. I will also say that this last month, since we met the last time, at the end of January, actually on the 31st, along with a representative from the clerk's office, Ann Arbor Public Schools, as well as a representative from the Disability Network, we completed accessibility checklist of polling places at Forsyth, Ba, and Allen schools. Accessibility checklists are something that should be done of all polling places, and generally are before election time. So even though sometimes things may not be fully accessible, we can put things in place the day of or for the day of voting. So we found no major issues with any of the polling places that we visited. Also, on that same day, I did forward, I think I had told you that last month that I had forwarded a policy update that I had done for this human resource policies for the city of Ann Arbor. I also submitted at the end of January an ADA grievance notice and procedure along with administrative policies and procedures to our legal team for them to review. And then also just last week, I had submitted, it's interesting that this came up at the beginning with that I had written information technology accessibility policy. And within that, and I submitted that also to legal for review. And with that, I actually, if I can pull up, I actually put up the monitoring reporting that I would, at least on an annual basis, will enlist the assistance of advocacy groups to test the website for accessibility. And then if pages are found to be inaccessible, that we would have 10 days to be compliant. And then once in compliance with the web content accessibility guidelines, the page in question would be reevaluated for accessibility, and then all testing would be reported to the Office of Organizational Equity as well as to CODI. So, so glad that we have somebody who might become part of the commission that is an expert on that. I also want to share information that was brought up that as you are possibly looking at public entities, there is the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design that you might want to review, as well as for any public accommodation, they do have to be compliant under Title III of the ADA. So that's for public entities, including stores and restaurants and movie theaters and such. So just wanted to add that on as a just as a resource for y'all. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Mozak?
Actually, I just wanted to offer my assistance. I would be happy to share the pictures that I took of my vehicle parked with the it was actually a night of a city council meeting that I went, and there was a car parked in the blue lines, so I could not access my vehicle, and I actually called the police to help me, and they were very kind. An officer wound up pulling my vehicle out of the spot for me so that I could then access my vehicle. If you would like me to write out a short story about that, if you would find that helpful. That was not the only time that has happened. I've been in that parking lot several times where I was actually not able to park at all because there was someone parked in between the two accessible spots. So anything that I can do to help expedite this is not just for my own personal gain, but for anyone who has an accessible vehicle. And honestly, it also helps the city because that means somebody's parking in a spot that they're not paying for parking. You know what I mean? It's not a paid parking spot, it's lines. So there's someone trying to circumnavigate parking. So anything that I can do to be of help, please let me know.
I will say that I do actually have those photos, and I did forward those on to two different departments within the city.
I was just wondering if maybe Aisha, if she was going to consider doing your suggestion, that if Aisha wanted those, maybe you could forward them to her as well then.
Whatever works for you all.
Gazi Edwin?
Yeah, hi, this is Aisha Ghazi Edwin. Yeah, that sounds great. I think I'll touch base with Tracy offline just about the RFI. But yeah, if you could go ahead and send those pictures, that would be very helpful. Maybe just to Tracy and I. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Tracy, for all your work with the Department of Organizational Equity. And always, we are grateful to Laura as well for her efforts and work, and look forward to all of the great things to come. Thank you very much. Next, we have the City Personnel Report with Kennedy Cummings. Kennedy?
Hello, everyone. For this month, I have no report or updates at this time. I will only advise that, again, I am here to assist you all. So if there's anything that you guys need assistance with, I am here, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Kennedy. and doing a great job assisting the commission as always. Next, we move to the chair report, but before we do, I do request at this time that we do have one attendee that because we are going to be doing commission business and voting, that I ask that individual to now depart our meeting for privacy purposes. We do have a question. Councilmember Edwin.
Hi, yeah, I just want to, I don't know if you can all hear me. This is Aisha. I had some updates and I also was hoping to get a chance to, have the discussion with Mike Kennedy, Chief Kennedy, about the lift. So is that all going to happen, just for clarity purposes, after
Yes,
this
so
internal?
that's under new
Okay.
business.
That's on the agenda,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, so we should leave, or I should leave, as a non-voting member.
No. You don't have
Just the guests. Just the guests. Got it.
Yeah, just the guests.
Okay.
We ask any guests if they are on at this time, except for those who need to present. If those guests can depart this meeting at this time so that we can conduct official business on record, that would be appreciated. All right. Kennedy, could you notify the commission when that guest has departed, please?
The candidate has departed. We are all set.
Thank you. So under the chair report, I then now bring the topic of Sam Ackenbauer to the commission for consideration, and I move to vote whether we should incorporate this individual on the commission, and if we should, vote on him to go to the next stage. Is there any discussion on this? Okay.
I have some.
Okay, Larry.
I just want to mention that the commission can take this for what it's worth, but I thought when we interviewed the candidate, I thought that he was very great with the research. He was very cool with research, but it seemed like he was very unfamiliar with a lot of disability, main disability advocacy per se. He's a research guy, and my concern was, will he be a good advocate, or will he be a guy that we might want to go to as a research guy? Now that's the only thing and therefore I will be voting against him. But this is why we brought it up to the commission, because I could be totally wrong on what we need.
Okay. Thank you, Larry, for sharing your thoughts. Any other comments?
I guess I'd offer the counterpoint, which is to say that I don't mind that lack of experience. I think this could be a growth opportunity for this individual. It is a different perspective than what I've seen in my years on the commission. I'm more optimistic about enriching the conversations. I liked the spirit of volunteerism. So I'm a little more optimistic, but I do recognize that, Larry, you have a lot more experience in this space than I do.
Absolutely. Okay.
Commissioner Packard?
I just wanted to concur with the last comment, that I believe that he clearly offers a different perspective and skill set that would be valuable. And I sense that he is here in his career because he is passionate about what he is working on and researching. And it would be great to have someone who can help in areas of research, like you talked about. And I just feel that it sounds like a great opportunity. The only question is, we're required to have a certain percentage of board members with a disability, correct? And just to make sure that we're still within those compliance requirements is the only question that I would have. But as far as skills and perspectives, I think I was pretty excited to hear everything you had to say. Pretty encouraged. So
Yes,
those are
that
my
is correct.
thoughts.
And yes, we are in compliance.
There
We
you
are.
go. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And I want to encourage the whole commission too. I mean, going forward, if anyone wants to continue to wants to be a part of the recruiting committee to review applications that come in with myself, with Larry, with Kennedy, please reach out and more can be a part of that process, by the way, conduct those interviews and when we are kind of screening candidates. With that being said, at this point, I'd like to make a motion to vote on this candidate.
I'll move we vote
All right.
on sending this candidate forward.
Okay. So then all in favor of moving Sam
Point
Ackenbauer?
of order. We need a second.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, we need a second. Yeah.
This is Kathleen. I will second. I also wanted to recognize that Deb has joined us. I wasn't sure if anybody saw that.
Yes, I did. I made note of her presence and I took her down as present. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kathleen. And yes, so thank you, Kathleen, for the second. My apologies for that. All right. So all in favor of putting a vote to Sam Ackenbauer and putting him to the next level, please unmute and say aye.
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 Okay, great. Thank you.
I was swayed.
All right. And Deb, great to hear you, by the way, and hope you're
Yes,
doing.
I'm fine. I'm almost going home. I'm still in the Regency.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
That is not the Regency you guys know. It's the it's the rehab.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, it would be nice to be in the Hyatt Regency.
Absolutely.
Hope your healing and rehab goes well, Debbie.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, Kennedy, thank you. And then if you can notify Sam at some point, we would really appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you. Next, we move on to the City Council update with Council Member Ghazi Edwin.
Hi everyone, it's Aisha. So thanks for thanks, Zach. So I have a few things I want to talk about. One is I've been working on a legislation called Right to Sit. I don't know if people have heard about Right to Sit. So the right to sit was something that was legally, federally protected until 1975. And it was the right for people to be able to sit during their job, whether or not you had a disability. So that means, if you're working in retail, you have the right to sit for a little bit. This has become more of an issue now with, like, for example, people working at drive-through windows and they're standing all day, or if you're working in retail. And there's many people who may not have what is legally qualified as a disability, but they may have a back problem or something else, and it's an issue, right? So city by city, like Portland has passed an ordinance protecting that right, and that would give people who are not disabled to the right to sit at some point while they're working, and as long as it doesn't interfere with their job role. So that's something that has to be figured out with the employer. So we were working on trying to pass something like that in Ann Arbor, but it is preempted by a state law, which basically bars municipalities from making changes to certain aspects of employment and labor. So I've talked to unions, and I've talked to now disability advocates, and I've said, you guys need to join together in what you're advocating for at the legislature. You guys need to remind there's a bunch of like casino workers coming to the legislature and other people trying to overturn this law that prevents local cities from making changes to employment practices and rights. And now, for the first time, they're going to be joined by a bunch of disability advocates, which is really great. We are getting a legal opinion on this to see, like, is it at all not possible in Ann Arbor? This was actually brought to me by an issue by a hairdresser who was having difficulty standing, was getting in trouble at work. So I'll keep you all updated on that. I guess some of the new things that I've been working on is I'm still planning to have a meeting with housing department in regards to building that list, which Detroit has too, called Detroit Home Connect. And it's all affordable housing units that it's a public, server that people can search, including housing organizations. And it also lists the level of accessibility of each unit and whether or not, there's a wait for them. Because what ends up happening is people often with disabilities, will cycle through shelters that are inaccessible, and that exacerbates their disability. And then they'll finally get placed in a housing unit, and like they'll be in a wheelchair and there'll be steps leading up. And then the whole cycle starts again. So it's called Detroit Home Connect, and we're trying to get one in Ann Arbor. So I've been working on that. I'll reach out to Tracy's office as well to see if there's some way that we can work kind of together on that. There is some new developments that have come to my attention in the city where, walkability is, of course, a huge priority in reducing vehicular miles traveled, making less parking spaces and making less parking structures in new developments. But I've referred some developers to consult with companies that provide accessibility audits on those developments to make sure that, like, it's great to have less parking spaces, but also, is this going to deter people who are older adults or people with disabilities or mobility disabilities from living in these units? And we have, like, where's the nearest bus stop, right? And is there city owned accessible parking or privately owned accessible parking within a certain proximity? Then the accessibility audits. I'm glad to hear that those happen in Ann Arbor. So my organization, Detroit Disability Power, began those audits. They helped to create like the audit tool, and they've been doing it with the Carter Center. And we have, I think I told you guys this previously, we audited all Metro Detroit polling locations, and we found, this is not including Ann Arbor, but that only 16% of locations were accessible to voters with disabilities. So either they didn't have the accessible voting machine, or they didn't have, a desk and a chair that was at wheelchair height that was private for people to vote. And then we're working with clerks to change that. Luckily, our clerk is pretty fantastic. And even though the city wasn't directly involved, she heard about the effort. She's been engaging with us. And I've been hearing that they're also using a tool, which I think is what Tracy was referring to, a similar tool. And I know that Detroit Disability Power is going to be coming and auditing Ann Arbor's as well, but I'll give Clerk Beaudry a heads up about that so they can be more collaborative. And then, today I got some requests from a constituent. Alex was CC'd on it about the federal building entrance not being accessible, and Tracy chimed in, and because it's a federal building, it's kind of out of our bounds, but just trying to navigate some of those constituency issues. And then I don't want to talk too much about this now because I know Chief Kennedy is on, but I would love for us to talk more about the lift related to, fire services and the fee that may be involved. So that's it for me. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Outstanding work. Thank you, Councilmember Edwin, for all of these updates and for all the work that you continue to do, not only for making sure buildings and polling places are accessible, but holding everyone accountable. Absolutely. So thank you. Let's see. I don't think actually we have any old business, right, Kennedy?
No old business at this time. The next part of the meeting is new business, and it is the Ann Arbor Fire Department
Yes.
lift of this discussion.
Absolutely. I would like to thank Chief Kennedy for his patience today. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Appreciate it. For those I haven't met, Mike Kennedy, Fire Chief. Try to provide a little background, but also try to be brief. So I'm happy to provide any further explanation. a year ago, the fire department started operating our own ambulance. So that's we did that in response to service issues from Huron Valley Ambulance. Nationwide, there's a shortage for private EMS, and so we were dealing with extended wait times for the city. Over the last year, we've seen that use escalate far beyond what we had anticipated, which just reinforces the need for that. Over the last year, we had not been billing residents for ambulance transport. HVA does that. Most other municipalities do that. It was we were very much a rarity where we weren't billing. And what kind of started this was for us to start billing insurance companies, which is really kind of industry standard for that. Since we were going to go through this process of billing, the lift assist thing has been something that's been out there for a while. So kind of as a measure of efficiency, we added the lift assist as part of the conversation. They're really two different things. The intention is when this goes back to council is to split them. So the ambulance billing is kind of one thing, and then the lift assist is the other. I'm happy to answer any questions on the ambulance billing. That's pretty straightforward. And that's just where if someone is transported by the fire department operated ambulance, that we would bill insurance. And again, any other ambulance company, that's very much industry best practice. So we're doing anything that's out of alignment with that. In terms of the lift assist for the fire department, we've been dealing with really kind of three issues that are related but distinct. Two of which I don't know that a whole lot apply to people with disabilities. One of which I think that there might be some concern, which is why we're here tonight. The first is for skilled nursing facilities. So these are facilities where there are skilled nursing available. These are licensed facilities by the state of Michigan. People are paying a significant amount of money to be at these facilities, and these are operated by private corporations. One of the things that we will deal with is that if a patient falls out of bed or has a fall, that the patient does not need to go to the hospital. They're not injured, but they simply fell. What we deal with is that these companies will call 911 to have the fire department come and lift the person up and put them back in bed, with the idea that they would rather have the fire service employees risk potential injury by putting the person into bed versus their own employees. And a lot of the issue is these places are not properly staffed. This creates a very big issue because then we're using public resources to subsidize a private corporation. So that's one issue that we're looking at doing. And again, that's just it's a private for-profit corporation that's using tax dollars for their business. I haven't heard any opposition to that. So that's kind of part one. The second part is Huron Valley Ambulance will have scheduled transports where this is a patient that for whatever reason, they're non-ambulatory, and they are going for a scheduled doctor's appointment. This is not a 911 call. This is they're going for dialysis. They're going to see the doctor. For whatever reason, this is a non-ambulatory patient. Generally, these are heavier patients, bariatric patients. And in fact, we had one of them earlier today. The ambulance company will call 911, will call the fire department and say, hey, we need you to go to this residence to help load this patient into the ambulance. And so during that time, we're taking a fire company out of service for calls in their area to go do this. And then later, we're getting called back to reverse the process and take that patient from the ambulance back into the residence. My argument is, and my position is on this, Huron Valley Ambulance, this is a for-profit service that they're doing. They're billing the patient for this. They should be using their own, if more people are required to do this, they should be using their own employees to do this. They should be sending additional personnel. They are making profit off of this. And so similar to the skilled nursing, I feel that Huron Valley Ambulance is using a public funded service for their for-profit business model. So that's kind of the second part that we are trying to address with the lift assist. The third part is for individuals that are not in a skilled nursing facility, private residents, where they will call for, they fall, they're unable to get back up, and they will call 911 for assistance getting back up. These individuals are not injured. They just simply need assistance getting back up. If they were injured and they need medical transport, that doesn't count, and we don't call those as lift assist. That's a medical emergency. We transport them to the hospital and get them the care they need. What was initially proposed is that after we go to the residents for the 7th time in a 12-month period, there would start to be a fee. That fee would be $225. The idea with that being is this person has now called 911 9 times in a calendar year, excuse me, in a floating 12 months. And we've already been there 6 times. We've already assisted them 6 times. And once we start to go 2 or 3 times, we start reaching out to one of numerous social services. So it's not that we haven't done things to help this person. Sometimes we might reach out to Adult Protective Services. We might reach out to county mental health. It really depends on, is it an adult? Is it somebody with disabilities? Before we get there, we're already trying to work with this person. Currently, we really don't have something to act as a deterrent for them to just keep calling us and relying on us. Someone that needs that level of care, it's maybe they do need to be in some sort of assisted living facility. Maybe they need someone to come in and check on them. Obviously, there's a variety of ways that person could be supported. It's just the fact of, and generally, once we kind of reach that 7 time, we're usually going 2 or 3 times a week. This is becoming somewhat of a strain on our department just from a call for service perspective. So this last one of the lift assist, again, just to recap, within a floating 12-month period, what was proposed is 1 through 6. We go out there, there's no charge, and during that time, we would have worked with social support services to assist them. That 7th time and beyond, we would start assessing a fee. There are a lot of other communities that we researched for this. Honestly, this was one of the more lax ones. A lot of communities will start charging after 2 or 3. So again, this is not, I want to be the intent of this is not revenue. The intent of this is honestly as a deterrent that this person probably needs additional help, and 911 is really probably not the best thing for us to keep this person in their current living situation. So that's a brief summary. I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief Kennedy. I do appreciate that explanation, and also the viewpoint from yourself and others on the staff. I do want to open it up now to the floor for some dialogue on this, and see if what we can come up with here. It's open to the floor. Council member, I know you had some questions. I don't know if any others do, but I'd like to open it up to the commissioners at this time.
Yeah, this is Aisha. For me, I think, and I would like to meet with you more, Chief Kennedy, to just kind of understand a little bit more. But I understand that there seems to be a system failure and that the financial cost and the burden is falling unfairly kind of on the fire department. But it just seems to be an issue that the ambulance and the overall system has to address. And I don't know if the right decision here is for the cost and the burden to fall on the individual. Just because individuals, especially those with a disability and those who are, in either emotional distress or what it may be, they've just been socialized to learn that you call 911 if you're in an emergency. So yeah, I would like more information from you about how we can think a little bit differently about this, but
Commissioner
I will reach
Gossage?
out.
Commissioner
Kathleen
Gossage?
had her hand up before I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Commissioner
okay.
Mozart?
I just wanted to say that in terms of everything that you shared with regards to the fire department being called in to assist for-profit companies with their issues with needing to help individuals. I completely understand that. And as a person who is a fall risk themselves, I would hate to think that anyone in the general public who has taken a fall would not be able to get the assistance that they need in a timely manner because you're answering a call to a facility, to a for-profit facility that ought to have staff on hand. So I do understand that. I do have some concerns. Councilwoman Ghazi Edwin said, I think best. I would like to hear some more exploratory discussion in terms of the onus of the cost being put onto the person who's calling. But I also hear that if it's happening, say, 7 times within a calendar year, perhaps there are other issues going on. I'm heartened to know that you're not just leaving it at that, but that you are seeking out other avenues to help them by looking at contacting other agencies that may be able to assist that individual with stuff. So I'm really hearing a lot of hope and a lot of willingness of the fire department to work on this. And I'm eager to hear how this all plays out.
Commissioner Gossage?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief Kennedy, for being here today. I think I'll probably just be echoing what's been said already, but I would be really interested in finding out more about what sort of data you all are collecting, or if you're able to collect any data when you're doing these lift assist calls to find out what sorts of things can be done to preemptively prevent some of these things from happening, possibly not necessarily as it's the onus of the fire department, it's other community organizations and folks. But it seems like that this is something that the community could wrap its arms around to help support you all, as well as help support vulnerable folks in our community from needing lift assists as often as they do. Is there data that you all collect that is shared to the public or can be shared with the public? Just in terms of reason for call, those kinds of things?
The data that we're going to have is going to be pretty case by case basis, and it's just pretty much the person fell and we assisted them back up and there wasn't a medical injury. So some of this does speak to I don't have that data set really doesn't exist. So I don't have anything to share with that. I just want to be upfront about that. We would be able to run queries on addresses and patients and that sort of information we wouldn't be able to share for obviously personal health information. But in terms of like what caused the fault, like the mechanism or other sorts of things, that is not a data set that our current report system captures.
Would it be something that you would consider capturing?
The reports that we use are national. And so so for EMS or for medical events, it's through the state of Michigan, and for fire events, it's federal. And so those are pretty standardized forms. It would be a significant amount of staff time for us to try to capture that separately from the forms that we're currently using.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Thank you for joining us. I have to say I echo a lot of the sentiments from Commissioner Mozak and Commissioner Ghazi Edwards. Just being a social worker in the field, I know that in terms of billing, you would have to hire someone to do the billing. You're going to have people applying for financial assistance for the ambulance fees. So I don't disagree with the concept. I just, in terms of if the city cares about just having that be a balanced budget item per se, that it's could cost you more chasing the fees to get to have a person who can bill the insurance and manage, all those financial concerns as well. So just a food for thought.
Commissioner Boyce?
Hi, thank you. Just one quick question. In your talking with other communities about options, have you gotten any information or feedback on if a fee is imposed, are communities finding that people are not calling for lift assists when they really should because they don't want to encounter a fee? I'm talking from private residences, not from the care facilities, and leading to more expensive than trips to the ER and things that could have potentially been avoided by having the lift assist.
Those questions weren't answered. Were not answered. That was not part of our review. It was really kind of looking at fee structures of what other communities are doing. We wouldn't have that data set, and I would doubt other communities would have. I completely understand the question. That's not a data set we have, and I doubt others would be able to provide that either. But I absolutely understand the question.
Thank you.
Commissioner Poster?
Yes, I wanted to say that I use PACE, which uses the Huron Valley vehicles, and as far as I know, it's a nonprofit. But they do the ambulance. When I use the ambulance, they do charge me under Huron Valley ambulance. But I use the PACE vehicles, which has the ambulance symbols on it and everything, going to and from PACE. But they have their own vehicles. But it says HVA is a nonprofit. At least I always thought it was.
A nonprofit just means that there's not shareholders. So HVA is they're a private non-governmental entity that makes revenue. So PACE is paid for through a variety of sources, also user fees. But HVA, yeah, that nonprofit just means there's not shareholders that basically get profit sharing from that, but they're a corporation that is revenue, and they're non-governmental, and there is a lot of public confusion over what HVA is and what HVA is not.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification.
Councilmember Gatti Edwin?
Hi, this is Aisha. So, one thing I wanted to ask Chief Kennedy was, we were talking about data collection a second ago. Do you have data about what proportion of these lift assist calls have called like more than 6 times? Like what, I think that would be helpful just to understand like why at the 6th, right?
Yeah, the 6th was honestly just kind of a judgment in terms of, again, a lot of other communities were much lower, and this tends to be kind of a small super user group where we're not talking a lot of people, but it's a small number of people that are causing a kind of a disproportionate calls for service. I'd be able to pull that data. That's going to take some time. I don't have that directly available. One of the things, one of the members had asked about kind of the collection of this. For ambulance fees, we actually, most departments, us included, would that we're contracted with a third party insurance biller. So that's how we're handling the collection of the ambulance fees. The fire department already does other fees for fire inspections and false alarms. So we kind of do have a process in place for this. In terms of again, this is not a revenue thing, and so this would be something that kind of from hearing some feedback that I'm very much thinking like we kind of table this. It doesn't sound like there's opposition to the other two, and if I were to kind of prioritize them, this is a very distant third. The scheduled transports are a big issue for us, and going to the assisted livings, that's much more of an issue. It was, if we're going to have this discussion, that's why it was included. I think what it just really does is it will kind of double down our attempts with this super user group to get them the social service that they need, and more pursue that route, and just kind of drop the lift assist. And if I find that that's something that continues to manifest itself, then we can kind of come back and address some of that. Again, from what I'm collecting, the first two, it doesn't sound like it sounds like I might have some more support or some understanding where we're coming from with that. Yeah, and the last thing I want to do is, I mean, this is not meant to go after any segment of the community. This was trying to just be a deterrent. This was trying to be a soft deterrent. But I'm happy to pursue some other avenues, which it sounds like what I'm hearing. So.
Yeah, and for me, I definitely understand the reasons. What I wanted to know was like, is this a huge population of folks that is doing this? Like, are there a bunch of users doing this? So that's helpful to know that it's a small minority. But I think overall, we know that people with disabilities, I mean, they are disproportionately in poverty and unemployed just because of ableism, right? And we also know that costs with healthcare deter people from getting care. That's like basically our entire healthcare system. So I do fear that some people would hear about a fine, or they would hear about a fee, and they'd be like, don't call. And then everything would get a lot worse. And also, you're talking about providing some sort of services after the 6th call. I mean, that also would require some resources, right? To provide services to the person to help them identify maybe what other assistance they could get. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're leaning more towards the other two. I'd like to hear more about the other two as well, and maybe we can meet about that offline. And actually, one last thought. Shifting some of the costs and resources, I don't know if this is possible or the exact arrangement with Huron Valley, but it's part of maybe the MOU you have with them, saying like, if you ask us to do this over this number of times, you pay us more. Is that how it works? Or they pay the city?
There is not a contract with Huron Valley Ambulance, which is a much larger political discussion, and is one that's it's a pretty big pain point for us. And that's kind of probably a conversation outside of this group. But the fact that we don't have a contract with them is also problematic on a bunch of levels. They don't have a contract with any other community in Washtenaw County. It is incredibly rare that a municipality has an ambulance service operating within its geographic borders without a service level agreement. So there's a lot of layers to this that we could go down some other rabbit holes pretty quickly. So.
All right. Okay, I'll touch base with you offline.
Okay.
But yeah, it sounds like that might be part of the reason why, passing it on to the consumer, the user, was seen as a viable option, because it doesn't seem like there's a system to hold Huron Valley accountable in the ways we need them to be. So I'll touch base with you. Thank you.
Commissioner Solomon?
I just wanted to take a step back, one, to thank Chief Kennedy for speaking to us, and just to comment, in my experience on this commission, this feels like one of the few times when someone has come to us from a city entity, has listened to what we had to offer, and seemed to be taking the feedback on board. So to me, that was a striking difference than some of the other presentations we've received. And I just wanted to comment on that and hope that there'll be more of that. kind of robust feedback, active listening going on in future consultations with city entities. And I think, yeah, much appreciation to the chief.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Commissioner Packard.
So I too appreciate that you're discussing this and bringing this to light. It would be interesting to know how much public dollars are used with regard to that issue of private companies calling for help, and just echoing that, of course, you would not want anyone to ever be afraid to call for help if necessary. So just fascinated in what you are able to find out. And mentioning assisted living centers, do you think, I don't know if you can answer this, just I want to make sure I'm clear. Do you think it's a need for staff at those centers, or a lack of training, or anything that could be done to help prevent it from being, something that continues without, if there's anything that's causing those types of calls?
It's all the above, some of which is a deliberate corporate policy by them. And again, I just, the amount that these places charge for a person to be there, and then they're calling 911 to do this is it's, and they do it because they can, and that's just it. They've done it because they can. I don't blame the staff, because generally the staff is being told by their corporation to do this. And the reality of it is, we'll still continue to do it. If you want us to do it, we're going to come, but we're going to pay you for it, because you're charging the resident to be there, because you told that patient that you would take care of them, and they're not. So, like, credit to University Hospital, we don't go over to U of M if somebody fell out of bed. They are an appropriately staffed, licensed healthcare facility. This is not a University of Michigan hospital problem. We've never been there for a lift assist. There's about a dozen licensed facilities in the city. So that's what we're looking at. These are skilled 24/7 skilled nursing homes. This is not senior apartments. This isn't Cranbrook or Miller or anywhere else. These are, you have skilled, registered with the state of Michigan as a licensed healthcare facility. That's what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Hawkins, I know you have a question, but I'm so sorry. We're really, really short on time.
It was just a thank you to echo what Commissioner Solomon said, that this was a really productive conversation, and we'd love to have you back to, have a further ongoing conversation about this. So thank you for really showing up and listening and trying to understand our perspective as well.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hawkins. I do appreciate it. And Chief Kennedy, I echo the majority of our commission, as well as our council member. I would love to continue to dialogue with you, so that we can find a solution to this. Obviously, as you said, other points, not so much. It's more of that specific issue that we were speaking about. So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront to all of the commission today. And please, I hope that you can keep myself, our council member, and our commission involved in this process. All right. Thank you so much. I'd like to move on. Kennedy, do we have any communications for today?
I have a little bit of.
Oh.
So I have some new business, but I know that we're running out of time. I wonder if we should maybe put it forward to the next meeting.
Yes, if you can let myself and Kennedy know what that new business is, we will add it to the agenda for March. Thank you.
At this time, there was no communication sent. If there's any communication from commissioners, if you could please just raise your hand if there are none. We have no communications.
Thank you. And I appreciate everyone's contribution today. I do apologize, but I want to be just cognizant of time. So I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
This is Kathleen. I will second that.
Okay. So all in favor of adjourning today's meeting at 6 o'clock on February 21st, please unmute and say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are officially adjourned. And again, I would like to thank the City of Ann Arbor, the community
Recording stopped.
and also Chief Kennedy for all of his time today. Thank you, Chief. We do appreciate it, and we look forward to collaborating in the future. Thank you, everyone.